Welcome to Behind the Barcode, the podcast that goes beyond the label to uncover the stories of the faces behind your favorite products. We're your hosts, Anna and Sydney.
In this podcast, we dive into the dynamic world of consumer packaged goods with a focus on better for you products. As entrepreneurs ourselves, we know firsthand the challenges and triumphs of bringing a product to market. That's why we're here to share the journeys of fellow innovators, industry experts, and entrepreneurs who are making waves in the CPG space.
Join us as we sit down with inspiring guests to explore the stories behind the UPC codes, uncovering the passion, perseverance, and purpose driving their businesses forward. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a budding startup, or simply curious about the stories behind the products you love, this podcast is for you.
So grab your favorite snack and get ready to go behind the barcode. Welcome to Behind the Barcode. This is our first episode. We're your hosts, Sydney and Anna. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're really excited to dive into all things entrepreneurship, CPG, everything behind the UPC code. And our first episode is going to be about our stories and how we started our respective businesses, French Squirrel and Akasha Superfoods.
And also how we started this podcast.
Yes. Okay, so first, how did we start this podcast?
Well, we have a mutual friend who texted us separately or in a group chat, put us in a group chat and said she had a dream about us starting a podcast. And I texted Sydney immediately separately and I was like, I've never thought about this before. Yeah. What do you think? And Sydney had actually thought about it before, thought about starting a podcast together. And it just felt really aligned. And we didn't really know anyone else in the space that had a podcast that was like this, and we both have such a huge network of people in the CPG and the food space, and we get questions all the time from people asking, how did you start your business? How did you do this? How did you do that? So we really just wanted to create a space and create a podcast for people that are looking to start their businesses or that are in the thick of it and want support and want to hear from other founders.
Definitely. You said that perfectly. And one, I feel like our phone calls are already podcasts, so it was about time that we started to actually record them. But two, we had just spoken about this. So many people start podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there, but I really feel like what's differentiating our podcast is that we are the founders of businesses too. And so when you know the right questions to ask entrepreneurs, it changes the entire energy of the conversation. It's so amazing being interviewed by other people in the space, but you don't really understand unless you understand. And in terms of the right questions to ask to actually get valuable information. So not just like surface level, but a little bit deeper. So talking about actually tangibly what is your business? You know what I mean?
100%. Just going straight into it rather than like dancing around, oh, what's your story? And then not really getting into the actual logistics and meat of the business.
Which I think, of course, social media is great, but people only see the fun part of it when in reality, I know you can agree that 80% of the time it's behind the computer coordinating freight, shipments, pickups, Excel spreadsheets, and that's the real part of it, is the business behind the business. So
yes, the business behind the passion.
Behind the passion. Okay,
Speaking
so
of passions, do you want to get into how you started French Squirrel?
Yes, and I can speak for both of us for the fact that we both do this purely from passion, and we didn't start this for money. It was really just like, we're so passionate as human beings that this is just an extension of us. Anyway, so how I started French Squirrel, I'll try to condense it as short as I can for this podcast. And Anna's heard this 12 million times, but I started French Squirrel almost 4 years ago, August of 2020. And I have always been into cooking. I'm a huge foodie. I was, I never went to actual summer camp growing up. Like, I didn't like it. I think I tried, and I told my parents I didn't like going to sleepaway camp, and I didn't want to do this day camp. And I don't know, I was never really interested in it, but I loved food and I loved cooking. And my parents found this place that's now unfortunately closed down. It's called Chef's Inc. And it was right near the West Side Pavilion Mall in Los Angeles, if you guys know where I'm talking about. And I would go there the whole summer. They had different sessions, and I think I did like both of them. Usually like kids would only pick one, and I did both because that's how much I love this place. This was one of the most meaningful parts of my childhood, was this camp, okay? And I would go every day from 10 to 1, and you would get there in the morning. And I know it doesn't sound like that long, but when you're a kid in summer, like, you know, it's just, it was a while. You did 10 a.m., you started, and then we learned all the techniques of cooking, like how to julienne an onion and how to mince garlic properly in proper knife form. Like, it was actually like a cooking school. And my dream as a kid was actually to become a chef. I wanted to be a chef. When we were in Paris, my parents took my brother and I to Le Cordon Bleu to go around and check out everyone in the culinary school. And I was freaking out. Like, that was my dream. I have a photo of me in my like white chef coat and everything, chef hat. I watched Chopped, Iron Chef America, Rachel Ray, everyone on the Food Network. Like, that was my thing. And then I'm going to fast forward to college, where obviously a lot happened in between then. And I was pretty much eating really real food. And what I mean by that is my French grandmother, Sarah, my late French grandmother, Sarah, she used to cook very clean, for lack of a better word, very minimal sauces, spices, ingredients. Everything was just real. It was salmon, a baked potato, and green beans, and maybe like a side salad. Nothing fancy, nothing fried. Everything was steamed and baked and just wholesome. And my mom adopted that style of cooking, and that's how I grew up eating my whole life for the most part. And we actually weren't even allowed to have like Fruit Loops unless it was vacation. And that was kind of how I grew up in terms of food. And then I get to college, and everything was allowed. Like, there, I go to the dining hall, and I started to just eat whatever I wanted, because before I never really was able to eat whatever I wanted because of what we had in the house. And then that like association in terms of diet culture, that's another thing that I can get into. But like, okay, you're only allowed to have these foods on vacation, but not as a part of your everyday. So I definitely did go through that whole thing freshman year, which I know we've talked about, Anna, about, you know, going crazy in the dining hall, because that's what happens sometimes. And I definitely put on some weight. And then I go to the doctor, and he tells me, I think this was beginning of sophomore year, like, oh, you know, you could lose 3 to 4 pounds. And in hindsight, like, that's literally nothing. And I took that information, and it was the first time I had become even like aware of my body. Mm-hmm. And I took that information, and it went down a bad path. And it started off good. Started off trying to make adjustments, eating healthier, starting to go to the gym, but it spiraled into an obsessive environment, an obsessive nature. I'm sorry, I'm not losing the word. Obsessive behavior.
Yes.
To the point where I definitely developed an eating disorder, over-exercising, and then I lost my period for almost 3 years. And my whole health journey has become... The whole premise of my health journey was getting my period back, mm-hmm. and finding what health actually means to me. And that's how I started French Squirrel. I wanted to create my food Instagram where I would share all the things that I was creating, doing. I moved to Bordeaux for 6 months to study abroad in France, and I started doing restaurant reviews. I started taking photos of food and what I was making in my little apartment. And then that Instagram, I developed this following, and it was just French.squirrel. Like, I didn't even have my picture on it. I didn't want anyone to know who was making it. And that's even how I found your Instagram, Anna, Gratitude and Food. And you started posting your recipes and holistic wellness and all these things. And I developed this little community without people even knowing that it was me on Instagram. And so I continued to post. Long story short, I graduated UC Santa Barbara early and I was ready to start working. And I always wanted to start my own food business, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started to play around with the idea of a chia jam and peanut butter and almond butter. And my parents were the ones who encouraged me to start. And we had to come up with the name for my business that I didn't even know what I was doing with it yet, but we had to come up with the name. And I said, well, I have my Instagram French Squirrel, which by the way I made French Squirrel up because my mom I skipped this part, but when I was 11 years old, I made a book report. And at the end of the book report, I wrote that I wanted to open up a restaurant called French Squirrel. So then my mom bought the domain name when I was little, FrenchSquirrel.com, and she kept it all these years and kept paying like $5 a year on GoDaddy.
Roseanne's the queen of that.
Roseanne's the queen of GoDaddy. That's my mom. Any idea she has, she just goes and buys the website domain. But you do the same thing, Anna.
I know. I have so many domains that are just sitting around.
No, but it's great. It's actually kind of like a really cool manifestation technique too. Mm-hmm. It's like you have this thing that's here. It's like this idea that has come in your head, and you kind of just like you lock it in.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean if you don't want to touch it at all, it's okay too. But you're putting it down,
putting it out there
in the database.
Yes.
And so she was paying this couple dollars a year for FrenchSquirrel.com. And then when I was thinking of the food Instagram I wanted to create, I go, oh, well, I have a website, French Squirrel, so I'm going to make my Instagram French Squirrel. Then when my dad said, okay, well, what's the business name? French Squirrel. And for those listening, everyone tried to get me to change the name because they said it was a weird name. Doesn't really make sense. What is French Squirrel? But that's the whole beauty of it, is that it doesn't make sense. And it makes sense, but it's a weird name. Like, I know it's a weird name, but people remember it. So then I started working for Erewhon, and I love my job at Erewhon. I was doing marketing and bringing in new items, and I was like in the thick of the health food space, which was everything that I was into. I could probably, even today, stay in Erewhon for hours. It's like my playground. It's my third space. There's school, there's work, and then there's Erewhon, at the grocery store. Scouring the aisles for hours and hours and hours. And I was working at their corporate offices, and I was bringing my protein bites to work. These protein bites, which are now called berets. But at the time, again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do to start my own business. And I was just making my protein bites, dipping them in 100% dark chocolate. I was making them with oat flour and pea protein. It was just my recipe. And it was my way to introduce more wholesome, nutrient-dense ingredients into my diet by adding in more snacks, like real snacks. And then my former boss had said to me, why are you always eating the same snack behind your desk every single day? And I'm like, oh, well, it's just my protein bites. Like, I brought them in my Tupperware. I would keep them in the fridge.
Brought them to Bali.
Yeah, brought them to Bali on my yoga retreat. I skipped that too. There's so many things. I also went on a yoga retreat right after UC Santa Barbara with Kevin Wathy. Shout out. And I didn't know if there was going to be snacks on the retreat, so I brought these protein bites. And the same protein bites that I made for Bali, I brought to the office. Like, I memorized this recipe. It was something I just came up with. And then from then on, I was just making them for myself. And my boss goes, well, can I try one? And I said, sure. And I gave them to him, and he goes, well, these are amazing. What are you doing with these other business ideas that you're coming up with? This is your idea. And I thought he was absolutely nuts. He's like, you need to start a business making these. And I listened to what he said. I found a graphic designer. I filed as a California corporation. I go to a commercial kitchen and I start making the product, making the protein bites, developing 3 different SKUs, 3 different flavors as he suggested. And he's my mentor, Vito Antoci, shout out, vice president of Erewhon. And the rest is history. After that, I was making these by hand. I launched it on Instagram, said that they were available at Erewhon. And from then on, I've developed now a total of 7 SKUs, not including collabs and limited edition SKUs. But now we're in co-manufacturing facilities. We've expanded to 250 plus stores across the US, soon to be almost quadruple that, which we'll share later in a couple episodes from now. And I'm so grateful for everyone that's helped me along the way, including Anna. Anna's my lifeline for those listening, my best friend. And I seriously couldn't do this without you. So it's only natural that we are doing this together.
We're starting this podcast together.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Sid. And I know I've said so many times, but I'll never forget that day when you brought the berets in the cellophane packaging to Jamie's house. And I was like, what is this? Like, this seems like it's something that you were going to start. And I know that we were also talking about starting a chakra chocolate business together.
I found our Google Doc.
You did?
Yes.
I'd love to see it.
I downloaded it. I forgot to send it to you.
I'm excited to see it.
We almost started our own business together.
Right, which I'm so glad we didn't start because it's not even something I'm passionate about. I mean, chocolate is, but we were meant to have completely different paths.
Totally.
But also
like
similar.
We're very similar paths, but we're doing this. We have very similar missions.
Yes.
And it just takes a different form, is what 100%. I'll say. And Anna and I share a business mentor, business manager, coach, Lauren Plunk, who we'll have on the podcast. And she is the one who told both of us on a podcast that we went on a couple months ago. She told us we need to hone in on our mission because we were asked what our mission is for our company. And I have so many things sometimes to say as we just shared, but like to get to peel the layers back and get to the core of what my mission is for French Squirrel. And then I want to hear yours for Akasha. But my mission for French Squirrel is to help other women feel more confident in their bodies. And that's through food and through just body acceptance. And that's what I'm passionate about. I speak about that on Instagram, on social media. If you follow me, I talk about PCOS and hormone imbalances. And I became certified as a hormone specialist so I could learn more about how our hormones affect our health as women and fertility and all these things. So yes, all the health food stuff is great. I'm totally into that. I know we both care about our bodies in that way, but when you peel the layers back, what my mission is to help other women.
Yeah.
And that's
100%. And like, I feel that from just looking at your Instagram, and I think it's amazing that you've also been putting that out there so much more because so many people just see like French Squirrel chocolate protein bites, but there's so much more to it.
Yes. Okay, so please get into your story.
Yes.
How you started Akasha Superfoods.
So I have always been very entrepreneurial since I was younger. I had a dog treat business growing up, pogo stick club in the neighborhood. There was so many different things. I wanted to start a cleaning product company when I was younger. And me and my dad would go out to eat and just talk about ideas for hours. Shark Tank was my favorite TV show growing up. So I always had this hunger to start a business.
Yes.
And to do something. And I even started a couple businesses when I graduated college. I started an online coaching marketplace, which I had because I first wanted to be a health coach, but I realized that there are so many different health coaches on the market. Some people are for muscles, some people are vegan coaches, some people were, I don't know, exercise coaches. And I wanted to create a way for people to find coaches very easily based on their needs. So I started this little online marketplace that was available for about 6 months.
What was
and I
it
realized
called?
Infinite Potential, which part of it is I just didn't like the name of it. And I didn't want to continue putting in the work. It wasn't aligned. And then I started Mellow Pillow, which was this chair, this neck pillow for the beach that I discovered in Bali and then had them made here.
My mom loved them.
I still love them. I still have a bunch of Mellow Pillows. Mellow Pillow really taught me how to market on TikTok, I would say, because I ran the entire business through TikTok.
Yeah.
That was pre-TikTok shop era too.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. So anyway, backtrack. I was always entrepreneurial. And then in 2013, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And that is when I really started my entire health journey. Because before, we grew up on a very standard American diet. I was eating Fruit Loops every day, which I loved it. I had the best food growing up. And I just started learning about different diets, ingredients. I first came across sea moss in 2013, actually, because it's a great way to get mucus out of the lungs and help with coughs. And my dad had a really bad cough. Couldn't find any on the market. Fast forward 2018, I'm going to school at UCLA. I am obsessed with superfoods, going to Erewhon all the time. I was mixing things with lion's mane, reishi, doing all of that, ashwagandha in my dorm room. I was also studying food studies in college. So I was learning about how our soils are so depleted of nutrients and minerals, how a carrot today does not have the same amount of nutrients as it did 40 years prior. So supplementation is actually extremely important based on what your body needs, because unless you're buying everything biodynamic or from farmers markets, you're not getting the proper nutrition. I mean, the fruits and vegetables at the grocery store were picked way too early on.
Yeah.
And
You're the one who opened, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
You're the one who opened my eyes to this whole thing about the soil and about our food in terms of the grocery store and the products that are, the produce that's actually on grocery store shelves. And so much of our food has become tasteless.
It's
horrible.
Even if you cut into a strawberry that you get at the grocery store versus one that you get at the farmer's market, it looks significantly different too. So I started going to the farmer's markets. I continued my health journey. I had so many supplements and different superfoods. I actually went a little too extreme, I would say. But one of the things that continuously kept coming up was sea moss. And I still couldn't find any. I would go to Erewhon, Whole Foods, couldn't find any sea moss in retail stores. Yet I knew how to make it, but I still couldn't find a good source of it. And then fast forward to 2020, I was working at Next Health. I'd previously worked at Sun Life Organics, which was amazing. And I continued my education of different superfoods, and I just loved it because I'm just so passionate about talking to people.
And you stayed in the space. Like, everything makes sense that you did.
Yeah. Every single job, instead of going into a corporate job right out of college, I wanted to just continuously surround myself with people that were in the health space, in the wellness space, the biohacking space. Yeah. Spaces that I knew would... I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I wanted to start something of my own eventually. And I knew that just surrounding myself in those environments would eventually take me there. Yeah. And so I was working at Next Health, loved it. And COVID hit. We had a lot of downtime. We were just doing COVID tests. And there was another guy working there. His name is Alex. And we both bonded over our love for superfoods. And one day I asked him if he's tried sea moss, because COVID, a lot of people are having lung issues. And that was something that I wanted. I still hadn't tried yet. Yeah. Turns out he was already taking it. He was buying it off of a friend that he knew. Crazy. And I just, this obsession, when something continuously shows up in your life, you just have to act on it. Or at least that's my experience. Is sea moss continuously kept coming up over almost a 10-year span. It was a sign. Okay, I needed to do something about it, and I wanted to be the first person to bring sea moss to mass retail and bring it to as many people as possible, because I had seen so many stories and testimonials online about how much it was helping people's health, how it's so high in minerals, which our soils are so depleted of minerals, going back to what I learned in college. So we connected with a family friend person who lives in St. Lucia. They sent us product. I started making it in my kitchen. We were selling it on Instagram to people through Instagram DMs. Didn't even have a Shopify store set up. We didn't start out with a designer. We designed our first label in Canva free, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking at the products right now in front of me, and I was almost like getting a little bit emotional because it's really crazy how both of our brands have changed and like grown with us. And I remember your first label, and it's just like, your packaging is so beautiful, Anna.
Thank
I'm just
you.
like, it's just crazy.
Yours is so beautiful
but
too.
Like
yeah.
It's just nuts.
It's so crazy.
Okay, go ahead.
So we started making the sea moss gel in the glass jar.
Yeah.
And then eventually we got a commercial kitchen because we launched into Erewhon, which was our first retailer, December 2020, which was so exciting. And I was like, wow, people actually want this product. And no one really knew about sea moss.
Yeah. Which is a hard part of your business, is educating people. Like, people didn't know what it was at all.
It was a $25 product in the refrigerated space.
Yeah.
Yet no one really knew what it was. So I started taking to social media and just trying to educate people on TikTok. This was while we were doing the production, doing everything. And I remember it was pretty difficult at first because no one, especially it had this weird word, sea moss. Like, it sounds kind of gross. What are you going to do? Consume a moss?
Yeah.
And so a lot of education, and continuing today, we have to provide like a lot of education with our products and in our content. But then it started to gain a lot of traction. And Alex and I, our second product we were going to launch was actually Shilajit, just because Shilajit is one of my favorite products and it's high in minerals. But we decided we both love the ocean so much. We decided to make our company an ocean-based superfood company. Yeah. So everything we sell has some element of the ocean. We also have skincare products. And our main product, sea moss. And then our glow gummies that we just launched, they have pearl powder in them as well, which comes from the ocean, from ground up pearls. Yeah. And one of the main benefits that people actually saw from taking the sea moss was their skin clearing up. And that could be a combination of the iodine content, the high mineral content. And we knew that our next product, we wanted to focus it on glowing skin. So, which is why we developed the glowing skin gummy that we launched in October of this past year.
They're amazing.
Thank you. They're now our top seller.
Wow.
Just super exciting. And yeah, it's been such a crazy journey though, going from the jarred sea moss gel to the liposomal packets that we have now.
Completely transformed your business in the last few months.
In the last year. We launched them June, July of last year, the packets, and we had to completely change our business. It was like starting over again.
Yeah.
After being in business for over 2 years, re-educating the customers, the subscriptions, all of that.
Yeah, because you built this following, this customer base, and then all of a sudden you changed the vehicle in which they're getting sea moss. It's not that it's still sea moss, but like me, I eat your product every single day. Yeah. Every morning I take the liposomal packet with my water, and I don't know. I'm biased because I'm not even because I'm your friend, but because the texture thing for me wasn't, I'm a texture person. And when I was eating the sea moss out of the gel out of the jar, it's great, but I had to blend it in something because I couldn't take a spoonful. Now with your liposomal packets, I do one shot and it's great and it's delicious. And I'm not like I want to savor the entire thing. I'm like, wait, there's no more coming out.
Right. You almost want another one.
Yeah. I want another one. So you've I know that the change obviously of course upset some customers, but you've gained so much more, and I eat your product every day.
So many more. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And
I couldn't before is what I'm saying.
It was our biggest risk, and it's had the biggest reward already, which at first we didn't quite see it. And now after seeing it over the last 6-9 months, it's completely transformed our business.
Incredible.
And it actually, I feel like I'm finally in a space where we're actually selling the product and not so much in a problem solving mode. Yes. Because we were in problem solving mode for about 2 years. We were doing R&D to create that product. We tried everything.
I know.
Literally everything. And I'm very happy with where it's at right now, and just so excited to see where it goes and where we go
Amazing.
together. And like you said, I couldn't have done this without you. So every step of the way, we both know the ins and outs of each other's business.
Yes.
Truly, like,
it's amazing. I know.
So,
okay, great. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our stories.
Yes.
And we're hopefully going to be providing our advice, insight through other entrepreneurs and other innovators in the space, their stories as well. And a lot of them, Anna and I have worked with for our business, and we're just super excited to dive into this.
Yeah, I feel like we just barely scratched the surface.
I know. There's
just
so much
with our
more.
Stories. There's so much that has happened, so
Yes.
much that we've learned, so many challenges that we've gone through, and so many people that we've met along the way.
Yes.
So it's going to be really, really amazing to be able to share everything
Yeah.
on this podcast and just have it all condensed into a bunch of different episodes with incredible
Yes.
people.
I could not have said that better myself.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Barcode. We hope you enjoyed diving into the stories behind the products that fill your shelves. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite listening platform.
Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. You can find everything linked in the show notes. And if you have a story to share or know someone who does, we'd love to hear from you.
Keep innovating, inspiring, and being curious about the stories behind the barcode. See you on the next episode.